Hi guys, it's Paul from Locks in the City. I'm going to do another video, part 5 I believe this is. Basically this one is going to go on from the last video, which sort of spoke about how I got into the mindset of setting up Locks in the City, the preparation, getting ready to, you know, become Locks in the City, as it were. And I also spoke a little bit about how I ended up becoming a master locksmith by taking my exams with the MLA. So with this one now, this video going on, I'm just going to do probably a little bit of backwards and forwards of different aspects of Locks in the City in the early days, and you know, how I've got to the point of where I am now. So as I was saying before, the companies that I initially was working for as an employee, I ended up doing work for them as on a subcontractor basis. So it's mainly just doing evictions, and that is probably where, as I said previously as well, that is where I learned my main core of locksmithing, of opening doors non-destructively. Although at the beginning, you know, it was drilling locks and destructive entry, I always wanted to get in with the minimal amount of damage if I had to do anything. So, you know, 6mm hole for mortise locks was, you know, my aim if I had to drill a mortise lock. And to be fair, at the early days, my mortise picking isn't anywhere near close to what it is now. But it has been tough, you know. I'm not going to sit here and say that, you know, as much as all the experience in the world of locks and everything else, you know, running your own business it's a hard game, you know. And I've noticed a lot of changes in myself, you know, and you learn a lot of lessons along the way. You know, you learn a lot of people, you know, who you thought you could trust, you know, a lot of people that you thought you could rely upon, and you know, you soon realise when you're out there and you're defending yourself, you know, trying to make a living for yourself, you'll soon find out there's quite a few people out there that are quite happy to sit on your back and tag along for the journey. So with that in, so one of the tough things that I had is when I was doing these repossessions for these companies when I was employed. I met a bailiff, I won't mention his name, but as far as I understand, carpenters come around and beat him in the arse anyway. But used to get on really well with this guy, you know. He was a court bailiff. We done many evictions together. You know, he was always appreciative when it was me on site, because he knew, you know, it was going to be a straightforward opening. You know, he wasn't going to be sitting around for hours, you know, with a mess being made at the door. Or if I was having trouble with a lock, he knew that it was, you know, that it was a trouble with the lock and not so much something that I had done. And then when I left, like when I saw him, I said to him, like, look, I'm preparing to leave, you know, within the next few weeks. This is my, you know, probably might be the last time we sort of work together. And he said, well, funny you say that, I've handed my notice in and I'm looking to set up myself as a private bailiff, working for myself. So with that all in hindsight, he said, once I'm up and running, would you come work for us? Yeah, of course, you know, why wouldn't I? You know, if I've got someone who's going into the bailiff game and they're going to pass me work, I'd be silly to turn around and say, well, actually, no, I'm not interested. So after about 6 months of me being on my own, I got a call from this guy, and he said, you know, hi Paul, how's things, blah blah blah. Just a quick call, just to let you know I'm up and running, and you know, I've got work coming in. You know, I'm mainly going to be doing forfeiture of leases. Would you be interested in doing them? I was like, yeah, cool, you know. at that point I'd never done forfeiture of leases, so but I understood it as being like a commercial eviction essentially. So, you know, I was going all over the place. We were doing these commercial evictions and I was on a good roll with it, you know. It was making some good money. You know, again, I was learning the commercial side of locksmith, and although a lot of the locks are the same, you know, there is a few locks out there that are, you know, different to the domestic game. So I was picking up, you know, again, vast array of knowledge. I was getting around, I was meeting new people, you know, I was meeting landlords, you know, who were taking my number, who's got other properties, who, you know, wanted to know would I contemplate going doing work for them on their other businesses and blah blah blah. So yeah, again, perfect. And I must have worked for this guy for, must have done about 3 years, you know, and he was always a good payer at the beginning, and then, you know, it started to slow down. Although I gave 30 days, you know, most of the time he was paying within the week, you know, and then it went to 2 weeks, 3 weeks, then we got to the 4 weeks, and I thought, well, fair enough, you know, he's got to have a cash flow coming in as well as I, so, you know, I allow the 30 days, he's been good up till now. And the jobs were coming a little less frequent. I mean, I was still working for him, but they were a little less frequent. But he was taking, you know, a month, and then slowly he started to go over that month, then 30 days, you know. There was times where, you know, 6 weeks would pass. So at this point I thought, I don't want to let it go on too long, so I sent him a couple of nudges and he'd pay, oh, you know, sorry, I've got so busy, and you know, like, I can kind of, at the time, I could kind of sort of think, well, I understand that my stuff's getting busy, and, you know, but, yeah, no, he really started to essentially start taking the piss, and wasn't paying me on time. And then he was starting to get a little bit narky when I was asking for my money. You know, he was happy when I was turning up doing the jobs. You know, he was happy when I was there on time and we were getting in and the client was there, and he was like, yeah, this is the locksmith, this is the only locksmith that I will use. You know, he was all happy then, but when it come to parting with money for paying me now, he was getting a bit arsey about it, and I couldn't quite understand why, you know. But you kind of just put it down to the stresses and strains of the job, and, you know. And then it started getting to the point then, like, we were getting close to 2 months of payment, and I thought to myself, like, no, if he's doing this now, it's going to get worse, and there's going to come a point where he's going to probably knock me for a job. And so I pulled myself away from him, and there's a couple of times he called me about a job, and he said, would you do this first? And I was like, no, I can't. He was like, oh, why? I was like, well, I'm a bit busy. And he said, oh, so you've forgotten where you've come from? I was like, look, I need to do jobs that I'm going to get paid for, mate, you know. I can't be waiting 2 months to get paid. I've got to pay out for stock. I've got this coming up. I've got to pay for that, and blah blah blah. You know, I can't be waiting 2 months for payment. You know, if I'm working for you, and I'm working on 60 to 90 days potentially, my business is going to fail. I'm still relatively new to this, you know. And then you get all the promises. Oh look, I'll make sure it's paid up quick. So you know you go do these jobs, and you know, of course he wasn't going to pay on time, you know. And then I started to lose a lot of respect for him, and I had a few invoices that were getting a bit delayed, and one of them, the longest one, had gone past 60 days at this point. So I thought, right, that's it now, you know, no more working for him, even if he does pay me up. I'm just going to work on getting my money, cut my tyres with him, and you know, lesson learned. So I contacted him, and he started getting arsey with me on the phone. You know, he was, I can't believe you're ringing me up chasing me for money. I'm a bailiff, you know, I'm good for it. You know, I've given you all of this work, and, you know, making out like he'd been doing me the favour, you know. And I just said to him, well, look, right, going forward, don't worry about giving me the work, just pay me up. And he said, well, I haven't been paid for these jobs yet, you know, so he said, I can't pay you what I haven't got. And I said, well, that's not what we agreed, essentially, you know, I'm doing the work for you, I'll give you 30 days. It was never agreed that, you know, I only get paid when you got paid, you know. That's not how I work. If someone does a job for me or whatever, or I got a bill, I just pay it. You just get it done and dusted, so you know what's in your account is yours. But he started playing silly buggers. Look, I'll pay it later. And you check their bank account's not been paid. You send him a message, get ignored. You know, he was doing everything. But you could just tell, like, he was at this point now where he's just thinking, you know, I'm just not going to pay you. If I am, I'm going to delay it out as long as I can before I have to pay you anything. So it became a bit of a battle, and slowly I got paid 2 of the invoices, but the longest one he still hadn't paid. And I couldn't understand, you know, like, you've paid the others, why not just pay this one? And it just got to the point now where I kind of thought, am I going to have to just wipe my hands with this? Am I going to have to just call it quits and walk away and not get paid? And it was for quite a considerable sum, you know, it was for like about 340 quid, this job. So it wasn't like an amount to just be sniffed at. So what I ended up doing then is I ended up looking up the property, and then I found out who the landlord was. And I called the landlord and he said, well, look, this has all been dealt with, I've paid the solicitors. And he was quite helpful, he actually gave me the solicitors' details. So I then called the solicitors and I said, oh, this is the locksmith, I was attended such and such on such and such a date. And they were like, okay, yeah, we got the record of that, how can we help? I was like, I've not been paid for this job. And the bailiff's telling me that, you know, he hasn't been paid, so he can't pay me. And the solicitor said, well, that's rubbish. The job was paid 3 days after the actual date of the job. He said, we did a back transfer. So the guy said, well, how much are you actually outstanding? And I quoted him my bill, and he was like, well, that amount doesn't tally with what we've got here. I was like, okay. He said, we've got the locksmith down as having charged 600 and odd quid. I was like, no. I said, you might have his fees and my fees. He said, no, we've got his fees separately in the invoice, in the breakdown. He's put his fees through, which are normal, but he's put the locksmith fees through at 600 and odd quid. I said, well, I don't understand why my fees weren't that amount. It was nigh on half that amount. And then, like, the penny sort of dropped. What he'd been doing is he'd been putting through his fees, keeping his fees looking like they're relatively low, and then using my fees as a buffer to bump his up, to make it look like he was charging all right, but it was the locksmith who was the most expensive bit. So it transpires that this bailiff, who's supposed to be a mate who I was supposed to have been helping out, and he's making out he's been doing me the favours, he's actually been riding my back and using my business and everything to these solicitors and landlords. I'm guessing, you know, I mean, I'm only aware of this one time, and it's got to have been going on for a long time. And the solicitor just said, well, we did question the bill at the time, but, you know, the bailiff told us this, so that he was a good locksmith and the job was done, and we put it down to, you know, he only uses a good locksmith, and that was the cost, so we paid it within, you know, 3 days. So I said, do you mind sending me over some details? And they was a bit reluctant, really, and I can kind of understand why. You know, it wasn't, the contract wasn't between me and them, it was between them and the bailiff, and they'd probably given out a bit more info than maybe they should have done, so they wasn't too keen on it. So I then messaged the bailiff, but I didn't tell him that I'd been in contact. I just said, I know you've been paid for this job. And I got a sarcastic comment back, you don't know anything about my business, blah blah blah, you know, you'll get paid when I get paid. And I turned around and said, you was paid 3 days after doing that job. And then the messages just went silent. And I'm guessing that's because he sort of thought, well, how do I know any details of that? And then he decided to send a message back. He said, well, I don't know where you get that info from. You know me, I've known you a long time. If I've been paid, you've been paid. All your invoices are up to date. And yeah, I didn't quite know what to do at this point, because obviously he's a bailiff, and I thought, well, I can't start taking him down small claims or anything, because, you know, the amount that I'm asking for is a relatively small amount compared to what, you know, would it end up costing me more money to claim back that portion of money. So I just replied to him and I just said, look, I've been in contact with the landlord, and I've been in contact with the solicitors. And then straight away he lost his rag. He's on the phone shouting and screaming at me down the phone. How dare you go behind my back to deal with my clients and everything else. I said, look, you're not paying me, you're leaving me no option. And he said, I'll pay you when I've got the money. And he slammed the phone down. So I already knew that the relationship at that point was going to be damaged anyway, even though I wasn't intending to work for him any longer. So I just took the initiative that, well, I've got to do what I've got to do to get this money now. You know, he's proven that he's not going to pay it, or if he is going to pay it, I'm not going to get it anytime soon. So I then took to social media, which I wouldn't really advise, you know, as the best thing to do, but I knew that his name and his image was quite important to him, just as mine is to me. And obviously, being that I learnt the hard way when I was working for these companies, when I was employed, I learnt to always keep a paper trail of everything and record everything and note everything. So I kept all of the messages and everything. I kept a record of the dates of phone calls and everything else like that. So then I took to Twitter. But I never, in the messages, even on Facebook, I never actually put an amount of money in there. I never put in there that there was a debt outstanding or anything like that. I just wanted to fire out a few warning shots to sort of say, like, I'm not just going to disappear. I'm not just going to go bury my head in the sand and forget about this. You know, I'm now more determined than ever to get paid this money. So the messages I sort of put out, as I tagged him in these messages, is just like, you know, hey mate, whatever his name was, just a quick one, can you give me a call regarding, and I put an address up there. I didn't put a door number, just, you know, can you give me a message or a call back? I've been trying to get hold of you, but you're not answering your phone, you're not answering the messages, so I'm just putting it out there just to ensure that you get to see this. You know, could you give me a call regarding these jobs? Or this job. So I didn't put out there that he owed me money. I didn't put out there, you know, that I'd been knocked or anything like that. I'm just putting out these shots that you're aware that you're out on these social media platforms, and I could have taken that opportunity to get a bit nasty and put it out there, you know, that you're, as a bailiff who collects debt, you are in fact my worst debtor. But I thought, no, I'm going to play the moral high ground for now. You know, if I have to play that tactic after, then I will. And literally within minutes of me doing that, I got a message back from him. You're playing a very dangerous game. You need to sort of basically tread carefully and everything else like that. And I just sort of said a message back. I know where I stand with it now. I know where I stand with you. I've got more to gain than lose. Pay me my money, we call it quits. I'm not asking for the £600 that you've actually claimed in my name. I'm just claiming for my original invoice. And then obviously with that, he's come to realise that I know a lot more than he actually realised I knew. And thankfully from that point, he actually paid that invoice. And I'm guessing that he was begrudgingly paying that invoice, and he was probably gritting his teeth and calling me every name under the sun. But this is the sort of thing that can happen when you're a new business. You know, even 2-3 years down the line, you know, I still consider that a fairly new business. You know, cash flow is important, and running a locksmith business is an expensive business. You know, it's different if you was on like an online business where, you know, you're doing an online service. You know, I'm not saying that they come cheap, but you know, I'm not sitting at a computer just using a laptop and software. I'm using physical materials, I'm using stock, I'm using tools, I've got to have all of these insurances, I've got my fuels, you know, all of the daily running tasks, you know, not just locksmith, in any business, you know, any tradesmen will have the same battle that I do, you know, but it tends to be that some of our tools, the locksmith, you know, the dedicated tools can be really expensive. So I just needed this guy to understand that, you know, you can't take people for fools, and that you need to pay your debts. So this is one of the hurdles of, you know, running your business, is, you know, meeting people, thinking that you can trust them, and they'll come along and they'll crap on you. You know, I learned a long lesson, and to be fair, I've worked for a fair few bailiffs, and it always seems to go down the same route. You know, it's not that I'm being greedy. You know, the job's always on time. I'm professional. I wear the right gear. You know, I'm not there bitching and whinging about anything or anyone. Keep my head down. I get in. I change the locks. You know, and I'm not using cheap crap. I put in decent high security locks, and sometimes I think that can be the problem as well. You know, like some people, they just want cheap in there, but they don't understand. You know, I'm there to protect that property. I'm there to ensure that no one else can get back in. So, you know, that's going to come at a price, and it's all well and good me putting cheap stuff in there, but if someone breaks into that property, the first person they're going to be on the phone, I thought you fitted secure locks. I thought you changed your locks. Some people don't really understand that. You know, they think you're going to do a job and then just charge them 50 quid, you know, and it's, you know, I think further down the line it would cause me more problems fitting rubbish than fitting decent high security stuff. But we can talk about that in another video. So what I want people to understand from this, you know, if you're contemplating setting up a business, I mean, most people who watch this, if you are already locksmith, you probably already encountered stuff like this anyway, so everyone's going to have their own way of dealing with it. And it's all well and good naming and shaming these people, but the problem is some people survive on that being that good or bad exposure. It's exposure, you know, so they don't care whether it's good or bad feedback. You know, it just means that someone's going to remember that name. And you know, if there's people out there that want to, you know who to avoid and, you know, the names of people, you can always send me a message with, you know, I've been asked to do work for this person. Is this the person that you're talking about? And I will give a straight answer, yes or no. You know, I'm not saying I've worked for everyone. I've worked for a fair few companies now. It just always, as I say, always ends up seeming to go down the same route. I'm not going to say that's every bailiff firm. It's obviously just the main ones that I've come in contact. There's a couple that have been alright, but again, they're not, you know, if I'm going to be doing these jobs for people, I want to be doing them where I know I'm going to get paid, I know I'm going to be respected, I know that they're going to have my back if anything goes on, and I'm going to want to know that, you know, I'm not going to be fobbed off and made to be the idiot. So this is just one of the hurdles. Obviously, as I say, there's plenty more, and there's other stories like it, but I could, you know, I don't want to go into it too long, but I just wanted to show, you know, that it is tough out there with some of these companies, and, you know, some of the people that you put a lot of faith and trust in. And I never thought that a bailiff, you know, I'd be chasing a bailiff for money. You know, you'd think that in their job role that they would sort of see what happens and the trail of problems that it can cause, but I think what it was is this bailiff just got a little bit too big for his boots, and he just thought, well, I'm making some money now, you know, if I have to tread on a few people, Paul ain't going to go, because, you know, he's getting a good work from me, he's made some good contacts and everything else. You know, what's one invoice out of all of them, you know? But yeah, so I'm guessing I was fobbed off on a few other occasions and probably earned a fair bit off my back, but that's lesson learned. So I'm going to call that quits here now, guys. I'm going to talk about some more, obviously, Locks in the City related stuff at the beginning, and some of the trials and tribulations of what it's been like. But for now, guys, if you want to like, share and subscribe, that would be great, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers, guys.